Right now, the situation is getting more intense and more interesting at the same time. And what is making people stop and pay attention is this growing narrative that Kudakwashe Tagwirei has not been seen publicly for a period that many people are beginning to question. And across Zimbabwe, there is a rising conversation about the timing of his absence, the silence around it, and what it could mean. As people continue to ask one important question, is this just a normal break from public view? Or is there something more happening quietly behind the scenes? Now, the real situation on ground is not about any confirmed disappearance or any dramatic event, but about the fact that a figure who is usually active and visible has become less present in the public space. And when someone with that level of influence becomes quiet at a time when political discussions are already sensitive, it naturally attracts attention and raises curiosity. People are watching closely because Zimbabwe is currently in a period where leadership conversations are becoming stronger, influence is being discussed more openly, and different individuals are playing visible roles in shaping the direction of events. So when one of those individuals is not seen or heard as often, it creates a gap that people try to understand. That gap is where speculation begins to grow, because silence in a calm moment may not mean much, but silence in a tense moment can feel very significant. And that is why the situation is gaining attention. Some people are looking at it as a strategic pause, and others are seeing it as a simple personal decision to stay away from the spotlight, while some are connecting it to wider political movements and asking whether it is part of a bigger picture that has not yet been made clear. What makes this even more interesting is that in politics, visibility is often part of influence. And when visibility changes, people naturally begin to question whether influence is also shifting or simply being exercised in a quieter way. That is why this moment feels important, not because of what has been confirmed, but because of what people are trying to understand. There is a difference between what is known and what is being assumed. And right now, that space between reality and perception is what is driving the entire conversation. People are connecting different developments, observing how others are reacting and trying to read meaning into what is not being said. And that is how a simple absence becomes a major talking point. At the same time, the environment itself is contributing to the attention, because Zimbabwe is not in a quiet political period. And when the environment is already active, every small change becomes more noticeable and more important. That is why people are not just asking where he is, but also asking what it could mean for the bigger picture. Some believe it is nothing more than timing, others believe it could be connected to ongoing discussions, and others are simply waiting to see what happens next before drawing any conclusions. And when you have all these different interpretations at the same time, it shows clearly that the situation is still developing. Well, it also explains why people are staying engaged, because when there is uncertainty, there is always curiosity. And when there is curiosity, people keep watching and listening. The truth is that there is no confirmed dramatic event, but there is a real shift in visibility, and that shift is enough to create attention in a moment like this. What happens next will depend on whether there is clarity, whether visibility returns, or whether the silence continues, because each of these outcomes will shape how the story is understood. For now, what we are seeing is a moment where attention is high, questions are growing, and the situation is still open. And that is what makes it important to follow carefully. Now, as this situation continues to develop, what makes it even more interesting is how people inside and outside the system are beginning to adjust their thinking based on what they are seeing and what they are not seeing. Because in moments like this, even silence can influence how others react. And that reaction can slowly shape the direction of events without any official announcement being made. You will notice that when a key figure becomes less visible, others begin to step forward more carefully. Some become more vocal, some become more quiet, and some begin to position themselves in ways that suggest they are preparing for different possible outcomes. And all these small adjustments can create a bigger picture that only becomes clear over time. At the same time, conversations are not just happening in formal spaces, they are also happening among the public, where people are sharing opinions, asking questions, and trying to understand what is really going on. And this public attention adds another layer to the situation because it increases the pressure for clarity even when no official statement has been made. This is where timing becomes very important because the longer the silence continues, the more room there is for interpretation, and the more people begin to connect different ideas together, sometimes correctly and sometimes based on assumptions. And that is why moments like this can quickly grow into bigger narratives. Now think about how this connects to the broader situation, because this is not just about one person, it is about how influence moves within a system and how visibility, timing, and positioning all work together to shape outcomes. Especially in a period where leadership discussions are already active. If visibility returns suddenly, it could change the tone of the conversation and reduce speculation. But if the current pattern continues, it may lead to even more questions and deeper analysis from both observers and the public. What makes this even more important is that people are not only watching what is happening now, they are also thinking ahead, trying to understand what this could mean for the future, and whether this moment is part of a larger shift that has not yet fully revealed itself. So what we are seeing is a situation where attention is high, interpretation is ongoing, and the full picture is still forming. And that is why it is important to follow carefully and not jump to conclusions too quickly. As more time passes, the direction of this story will become clearer. But for now, what we have is a moment filled with questions, curiosity, and growing interest. And that is exactly what keeps people engaged and watching closely. Kindly like this video and subscribe so you don't miss the next update, because this story is still unfolding and every moment matters.